Hello, welcome to Stories for Wonderful Children, the podcast where I share the recordings of the bedtime stories I've told my children over the years. I'm Dan Winella, your host and a storyteller. Tonight's story was the very last story told in August of 2008, and it tells the story of Winella helping Flibbertygibit create a new sanctuary for endangered animals. The only thing he needs is someone to direct it. Can she find someone to help him out? You'll have to listen and find out. I hope you enjoy this story.
Winella was going on a visit to Flibbertygibit's palace. She was not going for any particular reason, and he had not summoned her. But she usually stopped by at his palace every couple weeks just to visit, because they were friends. She was going for lunch. She knew he would have plenty of tuna fish sandwiches, but she didn't want to stop by without bringing something. So she asked her mother if it would be okay if she took something, and her mother said it was. So Winella put on her coat and went into the refrigerator and began to walk along all the cold shelves, looking.
Oh, Tom, Winella's refrigerator is an entire room.
It is, yeah. Looking for something that would be a good thing to take to lunch. She thought about taking some fruit, like apples, blueberries or something. She thought about taking some leftover pizza. She thought about taking some milk or some salad, but none of that seemed just right. And then she got to the part of the refrigerator where they had cheeses. And she thought, that would be perfect, a good slice of cheese. And so she took one of the cheeses out and sliced it, and took 2 slices and wrapped them up carefully, put the cheese back in the refrigerator, and then headed out to the Cat's Paw Highway. She climbed on and turned around 3 times, saying, "Cat's Paw Highway, Cat's Paw Highway, Cat's Paw Highway, take me where I want to go." And she found herself going very fast, and then she was in the middle of the jungle. When she turned around, it was Flibbertygibit's palace. She walked in, the guards all knew her, and so they did not ask her to prove who she was. But when she entered the throne room, she was surprised. There was Flibbertygibit sitting on the throne, but there in front of him was sitting a large black panther talking to him. And Winella said, "Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were busy." And Flibbertygibit said, "Oh, no, please come in, Winella. I would like to meet my cousin. Xenia, this is Winella. Winella, this is my cousin, Xenia." And Xenia said, "Well, it's very nice to meet you, Winella." She said, "I was here for lunch and to talk to Flibbertygibit about some problems we're having at the sanctuary." Winella said, "Well, that sounds interesting. What sanctuary?" "Oh, Flibbertygibit has not told you?" "No," said Winella. "I run the sanctuary that the cats keep for animals that are almost gone from the world." "Oh," said Winella, "that's important work." "Yes, well, we try to help protect them so that there will always be a few of them left, because it's terrible when something disappears forever, don't you think?" Winella nodded. Flibbertygibit said, "Well, we can discuss this over a lunch." And Winella said, "That would be fine." And Flibbertygibit said, "Well, please, come this way." And so they went to the kitchen, and Flibbertygibit said, "Do you like let us see what we have here?" "Yes." "Yes. Here we have it." And he brought out a platter. He said, "Do you like a tuna fish?" And Winella said, "You're being silly, Flibbertygibit. Of course I like tuna fish." And Xenia said, "Well, I do like tuna fish. But you must tell me, you have made sure that this is not bluefin tuna fish, right? Because those are one of the endangered species that we're trying to protect." And Flibbertygibit said, "Oh, no, that is another problem. My tuna fish do not come from this world. They come from somewhere else. And Zinnia said, oh, well, that's okay then. And she sat down on a cushion, and Winella sat down on a cushion, and Flibbertygibit sat down on a cushion. Flibbertygibit handed out the sandwiches. Zinnia poured the milk in the cups, and Winella got out her slices of cheese. She cut them, each slice, into 3 smaller pieces, and then gave 2 pieces to each of them so that they all had some. She said, here, I brought this cheese from home. I think you might like it. Oh, that sounds very tasty. And Zinnia said, well, thank you. Thank you very much, Winella. And Flibbertygibit said, so, and he took a bite of his tuna fish sandwich. He said, tell me, Zinnia, what is the problem you're having at the sanctuary? And Zinnia said, well, my problem is this, that even though we do a really good job at the sanctuary keeping animals safe when they're there, many of the animals don't want to stay. The sanctuary is crowded, and they like to live in their own places, and so they refuse to stay, and we do not keep them against their will. Oh, said Flibbertygibit. And Winella said, so why is that a problem? Because they're not safe in their own homes. If they were, they wouldn't have become endangered. Some of them are hunted. I see, said Winella. So what do you want Flibbertygibit to do about it? Well, said Zinnia, I'm really not sure. There's one thing I think you could do, which is if you could arrange some way to protect the animals from being hunted when they leave the sanctuary. Oh, said Flibbertygibit. I'm not sure. I could use some of my cat guards to keep watch over them. How many animals are we talking about now? And Zinnia said, well, at the sanctuary we have about 900 species of animals. And Flibbertygibit choked on his sandwich. Oh, 900? That is a lot of species of animals. And Zinnia said, well, yes, but only about 1/3 of those, about 300 species, don't want to stay. Oh, 300 species? Oh, really? And how many of each kind are there? And Zinnia said, well, it varies. Some of them there are only 4 or 5. Others there are a few hundred. Oh, it would be very difficult to protect that many animals. He said, I do not have enough guards to protect that many. And Zinnia said, well, do you think you could maybe set up just a few guards that wander back and forth, and that way the hunters never know which animals are being protected at any one time? Winella said, that sounds like a good idea. Flibbertygibit said, oh, yes, I think we could spare a few guards to be animal rangers. What else can we do? And they both turned and they looked at Winella. And Winella was eating her tuna fish sandwich. But at the same time that she was eating her tuna fish sandwich, she was thinking. And she said, well, I have an idea. You said that some of the animals don't want to stay in the sanctuary because it's so crowded. Could you set up a second sanctuary here in the jungle? And maybe some of the animals would move here, and that way they'd be close to the palace where they'd be safe. And Flibbertygibit said, oh, that is a very good idea. And Zinnia nodded. She said, it is a good idea, but who would run it? I don't. We need someone to run it and be in charge. And Flip-Flop said, oh, I do not know. I'm in charge of running a kingdom. I could not run such a thing. And Winella said, and I have to live at home most of the time. I couldn't live in a sanctuary. She said, it would need to be someone who cared. She said, let me think about it. And Flibbertygibit said, well, I will assign the extra guards, and I will begin building a second sanctuary here in the jungle. Winella, you will be in charge of finding someone to organize the running of it. And so Winella said, well, I'll think about it, and I'll get back to you tomorrow. Well, no, not tomorrow, because I have fairy soccer practice the day after tomorrow, okay? And Flibbertygibit said, that will be a very good. I will look forward to it. And Zinnia said, well, it was very nice meeting you, Winella. It was nice meeting you too, said Winella. And then Winella went home. She thought about it all that night. She thought about Joey. But Joey lived on the roof and was happy living on the roof. And she went up and talked to him about it, but he said really he didn't want to live any place but the roof. She thought about the tickling wolf, but she thought that the poor endangered animals might not want to live in the second sanctuary because they would get tickled all the time. And then she went to fairy soccer practice that night, and then she had to do her homework, and so she didn't get any more chance to think about it until the next day. And that was the day she had to come up with an idea for Flibbertygibit. And so she was thinking. She thought about Dolly the dolphin, but Dolly could only help take care of water animals. And she thought about Sarah Mae Figment. She thought she really had no idea why Sarah Mae Figment lived in her basement. I mean, she was a wish dragon. She could live any place she wanted. And she would certainly be powerful enough and smart enough to protect a second sanctuary. So she went down and talked to her. And Sarah Mae Figment said that no, that her place was in Winella's basement, because sometimes wish dragons know a little bit of what's going to happen in the future. And she said that part of the reason, besides the fact that she was Winella's friend, and she really liked the purple room in Winella's basement, was that the other wish dragons knew that she was there and wanted her to be there. Because part of why she was there was to protect Winella. Because the wish dragons knew that when Winella grew up, she was going to do something very important. Winella said, what am I going to do that's very important? And the wish dragon said, well, I can't tell you. For two reasons. First of all, because I don't know. We just know that it's going to be something important. The second reason is that even if I did know, I wouldn't tell you, because you have to figure it out on your own. And Winella said, okay. She said, I wish I could find somebody who could run the sanctuary. And she left Sarah Mae Figment's room. Sarah Mae Figment sort of nodded at her when she'd said that. She left Sarah Mae Figment's room. And she got to the stairs, out of the basement, and she heard someone sniffling just a little bit under the stairs. And so Winella stopped and she went around the side of the stairs and she said, Brave Bear? Why are you crying? I didn't think you cried anymore, now that you're not a sad bear anymore. And Brave Bear said, well, I'm not really crying much, but, I have to say, I really like your house, Winella, but I'm a bear and I feel so useless here. I mean, Joey helps you fly places, and Sarah Mae Figment grants wishes, and Dolly goes swimming with you, and all I do is color these crayons and go places with you sometimes, and now that I'm brave, I feel like I should be doing something. And Winella looked at him, and her mouth fell open, and she said, Brave Bear, you're a genius. And he said, I am? And Winella said, no, she said. And he said, I'm not? And she said, no, I don't mean that. She said, what I mean is, you're it. And he said, I'm it? Are we playing tag? And Winella said, no, we're not playing tag. You're this person who's supposed to be the new director of the second sanctuary. And Brave Bear said, I like the sound of that, Winella, but I have no idea what you're talking about. And Winella laughed and she said, oh, it's okay. And then she told him about how there were some animals that were almost gone from the world. There were almost none at all left. And about how there was a sanctuary where they gathered to be safe, but that sanctuary was getting overcrowded. And how Flibbertygibit and his...
I've heard of one kind of animal that only has one left.
What kind is that?
Some kind of turtle.
Some kind of tortoise, yeah. I remember you telling me about that. Isn't that sad?
Yeah.
The very last of his kind. Because there's only one left, so there'll never be any babies. But anyway, Winella explained to him about how Flibbertygibit and Zinnia were building the new sanctuary, but how in order to open the new second sanctuary, they had to have somebody in charge of it. And Winella looked at him and she said, they'll need someone brave, someone who wants something important to do. And Brave Bear said, and you? You think it could be me? And Winella looked him in the eye and she said, no, I know it could be you. And then he stopped sniffling it all, and he got a little bear smile on his face, and he said, I think I want to try that. And Winella said, well, come on then. And she held out her hand, and he put his paw in her hand, and together they went up the stairs, and they got on the Cat's Paw Highway, and they turned around 3 times saying, Cat's Paw Highway, Cat's Paw Highway, Cat's Paw Highway, take us where we want to go. And they went very fast. And they went into Flibbertygibit's palace, and there in the throne room, Flibbertygibit and Zinnia were sitting. And Zinnia said, well, I have talked to the animals who do not want to stay at the first sanctuary, and some of them still want to leave, but many, many others have agreed to come to a second sanctuary. And Flibbertygibit said, I've sent out my guards. I have given them all enough tuna fish sandwiches for several weeks of watching over the animals. He said, and I have started to work on the second sanctuary here in the jungle. The Queen of the Water has helped me, so there is an area for animals that live in the water as well. So now all we need is a director. And Winella said, and I have brought you your director. May I present to you? And she stepped to the side with a flourish. Brave Bear. And Zinnia said, oh. And Flibbertygibit said, oh. And Brave Bear stepped forward and said, I'm ready. Let's get started. And tomorrow night, I will tell you the story of how Brave Bear helped set up the second sanctuary, and what happened, and his many adventures there.
Thanks for listening to Stories for Wonderful Children. I created today's story, but heckling and clever commentary were supplied by my children. The theme music was created by Brandon Thompson, and the logo was designed by Silas Wendelin. If you know someone who might enjoy the stories, please tell them about the show. Our website is storiesforwonderfulchildren.com, and preview snippets are posted to most social media. I'm Dan Wendelin, reminding you to tell someone you love a story.